Okay, I trust everybody can see my screen okay now. Okay, so welcome to the DecoStudio E3 webinar. My name is Terry Marchand. I am partner in the company called Design Matrix Group here in Seattle, well, in Marysville, in Pacific Northwest. I'm an authorized training center for Wilcom. I'm the only one in the Pacific Northwest, which I think is kind of neat. And my job here today is to teach you a little bit about DecoStudio. So I'm going to go ahead and start going through stuff. If everybody can see my screen okay, just go ahead and raise your hand if you can see my screen. Cool, Chris can see it. Everybody else can see it okay? Iris? Sweet. Okay, I'm just going to assume everybody can see it. So now, what you're seeing right now is the initial screen that you should see should you open they're called projects now in DecoStudio, a new design file or whatever. Now, say for instance you open up your DecoStudio and you don't see this little screen right here that I'm mousing over right now. You can just click on Edit, where is it? Design, I just saw it, Change Project. Oh, come on. Experiencing technical difficulties, please stand by. It was right in here. Here we go, Change Project, under Design, Change Project Type. And that brings the screen back up. So project is what you use in DecoStudio to, it will set your underlays, your densities, your fill patterns, your satin stitches, all the things involved with your design. So we're going to click, since we're going to create a design step, it's going to go on a product. You can also create an emblem like patches and a generic if you're going to just freewheel it for a little while. You can do that. So here we'll click on a product now. We can choose any fabric we want. Let's just use PK, pretty basic. And we could choose a background if we want. Now, I tend to prefer to use just the standard default gray color background because it's unobtrusive. That's me. If you prefer to show a background image and it's a PK background, let's say it's going to be, this beautiful turquoise color. Let's just do that. And let's go through this layout box just a minute. This may seem a little daunting at first, but this is just setting your background and display colors. It's also accessible, this little icon right down here at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. You can show background color, image, an actual product, which I'm not, okay, let's go through it. You can have, say, it's a 2-color product and it mouses up and you have all these different garments to choose from. And you can pick the color for it. There are uses for all of this stuff. I mean, when I'm digitizing, I want to just see a color. So I'm just going to go just color. Now down here, selected is going to be this pink color. Unsewn is going to be a light gray. The object outline will be a darker gray. The grid, if we choose to show grid, is going to be the same dark gray as the unsewn. And a guideline is going to be a similar dark gray to the object outline. You can change all of that if you want. I'm just going to keep it the way it is. So, background, we've chosen our background. So, now we can click OK. Closes the wizard, sets all our object properties up the way we want it, and we're ready to go. So now, let's talk about our screen that you're seeing here. This is your digitizing real estate right here. Now, I don't know if you can see my whole screen. I have like a 21-inch wide screen that I'm using for my digitizing. So so if you have any if you can't see anything, just kind of holler and hopefully it's all showing. But so we're just going to go through things real quick. So on the top, this is where most of our toolbars are going to reside. Now there's a lot of blank space here because DecoStudio has a limited number of toolbars that you can have up there because it's a limited program. DecoStudio is for really basic digitizing, editing, lettering, things like that. There's a lot you can do, but then there's a lot you can't do, and that's why we have the Embroidery Studio product as well. So So let's, any questions so far in setting up a project? Are we cool? All right. So top of our screen, obviously what we're using, design name, and what machine format we are digitizing in. Tajima is the de facto industry standard. It creates what's called a DST file for to be read in most any embroidery machine. In fact, I don't think there's one machine that I've ever been experienced with that has not read a DST file. So I always tend to digitize in Tajima format. File, edit, view, design. I mean, these are basic with most of, in any program you'll see the same menu. This, of course, is embroidery specific. So, you've got design properties, select your machine format settings, change your project. We'll go through some of that, but some of that's more in depth than what we have time for today. So I'm gonna run through stuff real quick. The things you're going to use most often is in your edit menu. Whoops, cut and paste, cut, copy, paste. You can change your project's type, select, deselect, transform. There's also a toolbar we can pull up for that. In your design, you're going to set some design properties. Over here, if you want to put how you digitized in the comments, you can add what you've digitized it for. And then a design name if you have a separate design name, a specific design name you want in there. One thing about design properties as well is, Dana, did you have a question? You just type it in if you do. No? Okay. If in the design properties, it gives you the design name, what version of software we're digitizing in, what machine it's digitized for, number of stitches in the design, how many color changes, how many colors, how many stops. Stops includes trims. Total thread used, total bobbin used, which is just an estimate. How many trims in the design, how many objects in the design, all this stuff. Are you going to use all of this stuff? Probably not. But it's there. It's the technical information there. Down here you have, left, right, up, down, end X, end Y. If your auto start and stop is not working, these will not say 0, 0. Height and width. Stop sequence just gives you color, element name if you've given it. I mean, we're going to go through all this and how to change all that. So, I mean, don't stress too much about this right now. It just gives you the stop sequence. And of course, any other information you personally want to add. The other thing you're going to use here, auto start and end, remove small stitches. We'll go through that as we go through a design. And sometimes in your setup, let's go through the setup options. Now these are options for this design that you could also potentially set up as a whole template. The big one is closest point join. If you're digitizing anything, the computer will automatically make sure that it's joining at the closest point between those two objects. And I'll show you what that means. Autosave, I don't check it because I don't want it to autosave. I'll do it myself, but I do always create a backup copy just in case. Guides, the guides are accessible from the tool, the little ruler bar here. If you just click, it shows vertical and horizontal guides. They're great if you need to line up text. If you're if you're hand digitizing lettering, you can use this to see where you want to cut off the letter or not. If you want to make sure the logo is straight, you can use these as guides if you've got a JPEG in here. But to get rid of them, you just left click and pull away and they disappear. So that's guides. Now the grid, if you want to show the grid, if you right click, it brings up that same options again. The grid is set at 10 millimeters each, horizontal and vertical. And if these don't look square to you on your screen when you're doing your stuff, let me show you another cool tool. Setup, hardware setup, display monitor, settings. I went through that really fast. Let's do that again. Setup, hardware setup, display monitor, I mean, you can set up direct machine connection. You can set up a digitizing tablet if you're really old school and you have a separate tablet that you digitize off of. I don't think they exist much anymore. I think most people use Wilcom stuff, which is just works through the computer. Settings. Now, to calibrate your screen, you have to measure this dialog box, width and height. Millimeters is preferred because it's much more. It's base 10, so it's much more accurate than inches. But I mean, if you want to use inches, go for it. But the more accurate you can be, the more accurate the screen will be in showing you one-to-one size. So these are actually, if you measure these at 1-to-1, these will be 10 millimeter squares. That makes sense. So I'm going to cancel all that out. Now, where do we switch from US to metric measurements? Right here at this little toolbar right here, metric US. I can change it to US measurements. These now become inches, and these, come on, move. These now become inches, the property bar. This will give us X and Y length and width of X and Y position on the screen. If this is 0, 0, this little white arrow cross here, this is the width and height of the object that we selected or group of objects, and this is a scale factor. I like to put this down here because it's just out of the way. So now let's go through these toolbars. What do these all mean? These look daunting, don't they? So this is simply a stitch type: satin, tatami, zigzag, E-stitch, motif fill, auto underlay, and pole compensation settings. We can go through what all those are for you guys that are beginners. Any questions so far? No? Okay. CorelDRAW graphics. This button will take us into the CorelDRAW mode, which we'll go into in a little bit. Convert will convert from embroidery to a vector file or a vector file to embroidery. New, open, save, print. What's this one? Come on, mouse work. Cut, copy, paste. It's not working for me right now. Save because it's grayed out. Print preview. That's what that was. Undo and redo. Import embroidery. If you are going to edit an existing DST file, instead of opening it, you can import it here. Send a connection manager and stitch manager is if you have your computer hooked directly up to an embroidery machine. Applique cutter, if you have an applique in here that you have a cutter connected to your computer. Send to bling cutter if you're doing rhinestoning in here. Send your cut file to the bling. Zoom factor of 100%. Options, which is our setup options that we just saw. This shows us true view. I'll show you what that looks like. Show stitches, show outlines, show needle points, which I find very distracting. Show bitmaps, show vectors, show applique fabric. If this shows the appliques, and if we have a fabric that we've chosen for appliques. Show a background image if we want the fabric or product to show. Show hoop. You can choose a hoop based on the embroidery machines that you have. Show bling if you have rhinestoning. Show the grid, show the rulers, measurements. If you want the system to automatically select the hoop for you based on your design, which could get extremely distracting if you're digitizing. If you're doing that while you're digitizing, the hoop size will keep changing. And I'm all about reducing distractions when you digitize. Auto start and end. Slow redraw we'll get to. Object properties. We always refer to our object properties as we're digitizing because you're always changing something. Now in DecoStudio, it's maybe not as important to keep altering things, but there will be some times where you do have to alter things, like when you're putting lettering on top of a fill and you're using keyboard lettering. You do have to change your properties because you don't want, if we're, say for instance, if we're in PK mode, you don't want to put PK density on top of already existing embroidery, because that's just too heavy. And we'll go over that. That's a little bit of theory. Color object lists, color palette editor, team name list. We'll go over team names really basically. Zoom factors and all that. So those are the basic toolbars. Down the left-hand side, object select, reshape, stitch edit, the knife tool if you need to break apart an object that you've digitized, automatic knife, which I've never used, slice large object into smaller ones with automatic overlaps. I've never used that tool, so I'm not sure where that would come in handy. If you're doing your own digitizing, I don't think it'll matter. Fusion fill, input A, input C. We're going to go over what each of those do. Run stitch, applique, combine applique components. If you have overlapping appliques in a design, what it will do is it will actually remove the stuff. Iris asked a question. When you have a box, circle, and a triangle, separate objects, and they are all overlapping, will DecoStudio delete the stitches? So if you have a box, a circle, and a triangle, separate objects, and they are overlapping, will DecoStudio delete the stitches? Let's try that. There's something in here called remove overlaps, and I'm not sure if DecoStudio has that option, but there will be a way. In fact, I don't see it in here, but there is a way to do it. If you do have there is a way to do it manually, and I'll show you using the knife tool. And truthfully, I've used the knife setting more than I've used the auto knife. I've never used the auto knife setting because I don't see the need for it. And I'll show you what I'm talking about with that. Fusion fill, blah, 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 blah. Okay, lettering, team names, auto monogramming, and offsets, which is an element that we have in DecoStudio. So that's that. So if we go into other toolbars that we have available, you can either go, let's see, where is it? Window Toolbars shows this, or we can just right-click on a blank spot up here, and it shows anything that has a check mark we can see. Anything that does not have a check mark we don't have up yet. So I like to have my Arrange toolbar available just as a button bar up here. I like to see my Sequence toolbar because sometimes sometimes you just have to rearrange stuff. Transform toolbar and my Travel toolbar I like to have open. Now I like to put that right here. Now the reason why I have that one open is because there's always going to be a point in time when I'm digitizing where I have to go back through by object or back through by function and make sure I'm doing things the way I see it in my head, because there are times where now I'm talking hand digitizing, not automatic digitizing, but there are times where the machine will add a trim where I don't want to trim. So I need to travel back through functions or through trims to delete that stuff. Excuse me. Got to stop eating them frogs. One moment. Okay. So let's go into a little bit of, now we've talked about all this stuff. So what's the first thing we're going to be doing generally in anything is going to be lettering. So we're going to talk about lettering first, and that will lead us into densities and all that sort of stuff. So if you left-click, there are two ways to enter lettering. By left-clicking, click on the screen, and you can just type. The thing that we have here is that we have default font being chosen. We have default baseline, default spacing, default everything. I really like to set things up first before I do anything. So I'm going to delete this, and the more efficient way for me to do this would be to right-click on the A button here, or conversely hit the A on your keyboard, and it brings up Object Properties for lettering. So lettering, text options, and this little fly out here. We're going to make that permanent, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. So this little pin, it pins it, so it's always open. And you'll notice we have our scroll bar here now. These flyouts are actually pretty cool. It keeps you, if you have a smaller monitor, it keeps your digitizing real estate as large as possible. So we have color object list, which just tells you what objects are in your design and what type they are. As we digitize, we'll look at that and you can see the difference. And your color palette editor, which we'll worry about later. Just so let's get that back away. Okay, so object properties. So we're in lettering. Now, the one thing, to back up 2 steps, the one thing about object properties that takes care of is fills, all our stitching stuff, our outlines like run stitches. So we'll go through this in just a second, but I'm going to worry about text right now. This is where we enter our text that we want. So let's just do hello. Whoops. I clicked on the screen. Hello class. So I apologize for that. Insert symbol. So with this, we can choose any special character. So let's say you have a character with, and sorry, let's back up. This is the font. Just our view options. If you want to see it as an outline or as true view, you can do it. I prefer just to see it the outline. It's simpler and takes up less memory. But each one, as you can see, has the symbol on your keyboard that this types in as. But say, for instance, you're scrolling down and you have special characters like the extended character set for European people. That these may appear on the European keyboards, but they don't necessarily appear on American keyboards. Well, this is where you add those letters. And all the special characters should be here. Are also available through, gosh, excuse me, the ASCII key codes. If you're old enough to remember ASCII code, there's a series of alt and a number sequence to come up with a particular character. It just made the rounds on Facebook of, oh, here's this oddity when it's been around forever. And yes, sadly, I'm old enough to remember ASCII code, and it has its uses, like for registration marks, trademarks, copyright symbols. It has its uses. We're not going to worry about this for right now, but I just wanted to show you where that is. So cancel. So now let's choose our alphabet. Bodoni is kind of a bleh alphabet. I don't care for it. It's old. Let's just do a simple block, which we're going to use. Actually, Arial Bold is one that I have imported in here, but so it's going to have a little quirks, but I like it. Height, 0.39 inches. This is where I like to go back to metric because I like, let's go 8 millimeter text. If I could type today, it'd be great. Width in proportion to height. 100% of the width is 100% of the letter. If you want to condense it, let's just make this, we can make it condensed. You can set that up now. You can do it later. Doesn't matter. If you want this to be italicized, what angle do you like it at? Letter spacing, word spacing, line spacing, pretty straightforward. And you want it left or center justified. Most center justified is fine. Let's set our baseline. So if we scroll on down, baselines have to do with how things are going to be viewed on screen. Free baseline means it's just going to be as long, the string of text is going to be as long as it needs to be to fit it all in at the size we've chosen. Arc clockwise baseline for letters on an arc. Letter for hat backs for arching around an object. Fixed baseline, if there's a specific space you need this text to fit into, you choose a fixed baseline. Arc counterclockwise, vertical free and vertical fixed baseline. I could count on a shop teacher's hand how many times I've used vertical baselines. They are hard to read, and so I highly recommend that nobody ever uses them. But they're available because somewhere along the line someone's going to want text down the shoulder of a sleeve and they want it to be vertical, and you need to be able to do that. So it's available. and then set your stitch sequence. Left to right, right to left, start at center, really important when we're talking about hats. If we have time, we'll talk about hats. And closest join stitch method, which means the letters will join at the closest point or they'll trim. So let's go ahead and create that text. And it tells us on the bottom left-hand side, it's our prompt, press mouse button to start text. So left click once on the screen, wherever on the screen, and our lettering appears already digitized with our settings that we selected when we selected our project. So there we go. It's in True View, so let's take True View off so we can just see our vector stitches. We'll zoom in here, and I zoomed in using a keyboard shortcut key. I hit the B on my keyboard to bring up the zoom box, and I zoomed in. Conversely, you can click on this, which brings up the ability to left click and drag, and it lets you zoom in. Now, what are we seeing here? We're seeing our object. This little gray outline is our object outline. This little line that goes down the center of our object, that's our underlay. And then, of course, the rest of these stitches are our top stitching, our satin stitch. Now, let's talk a little bit of a theory of underlay, which is, it's pretty basic, but sometimes people have a hard time understanding really, especially if you're a beginner, it's kind of really hard to grasp what this underlay really is. So underlay works like the foundation of a house. You don't build a house on the dirt. You put a foundation. You put either it's a cement slab that's poured, or it's an actual, you've got a basement, you've got a foundation there, so which is still on a cement slab. So for the same reasons, you don't put embroidery directly on a garment without putting some sort of foundation underneath it, because you don't want it to sink into the fabric. You don't want it to disappear and fall apart. You want the lettering to stand, or well, your objects in general, your stitching to stand up and be visible and be clean. And that's what underlay provides. Now, because this column is basically, we're talking 1.5 millimeters wide, which isn't very big, we don't need a ton of underlay, so we've just got a simple center run underneath this. Now, let's talk a little bit about different types of underlay. If we have, and I'm going to switch programs here so I can do a little illustration. Everybody see this still? Good? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what type of underlays. So a center run, here's our column. A center run is just that. It's up and down the center. You can also have an edge run, which follows across the edge, and here's our fabric, by the way, falls across the edge of our satin stitch or our object, so that it gives us a smoother edge. The stitching tends to come across and straight down into the fabric. For wider columns, a center run just isn't going to give us enough stability there, so these stitches tend to fall into a kind of a more of an acute angle, and we tend to get, toothy edges on our some especially in lettering objects, where this will give us a very smooth edge because this is constraining those stitches to fall straight down. There's also a double zigzag underlay. So what that does is that gives us a zigzag underneath our satin stitch that sometimes works similar to an edge run, where it gives loft to the center, allowing these stitches to fall not quite straight down, but kind of a little bit more of an oblique angle into the fabric, so that depending on the object, depending on the application, this works better than an edge run. And really, that's taken on a design by design basis, or almost an object by object basis. You can change the type of underlay in certain circumstances. If you're choosing a generic project type where it's not setting stuff up for you, then yes, you can change some of that underlay types. Most of the time, this is all automatic for you, to answer that question. But if we switch back to DecoStudio, if we're in our stitching, we have underlay, use underlay, pull compensation, and trim settings. Because we've chosen a project, yes, we're using underlay regardless, and it's chosen for you. The reason why I'm giving you that the Y4s behind there is so you understand why the underlay is there, so you understand why it is what it is, and eventually you're going to outgrow DecoStudio, I'm imagining, and you're going to move on to Embroidery Studio where you have much more control over your stitches, and you're not letting the computer do it for you. So, this knowledge is good for you to know regardless. So now that we have our lettering up here and we have our densities are all set, let's talk about pull compensation. What the heck is pull compensation? Well, if we look at our objects outlined here, this little bit right out here is our pull compensation, that little extra throw that's outside of our object. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit more so we can see that clearer. So this little extra throw is our pull compensation. So in a nutshell, when you put stitching directly on fabric, if we do not have an extra bit of throw, your column width will end up being thinner than what you digitized it as. Because the physics of embroidery, when the needle sinks into that fabric and the bobbin is pulling down on the bottom and the top tension is pulling up on top, invariably that column width is going to suck in. So pull compensation is a way of adding extra column width so that you don't have to worry about it. It's a setting that gets automatically added to your column width to adjust for that pulling of the stitching. It's most predominant in satin stitches because a satin stitch is one throw over and back. And what setting do you need? Well, the computer sets that for you automatically depending on the fabric that you have chosen in your project. But say, because you have the ability to adjust that here, you might want to add a little more. So if we select this, we can add, if the PK is a thicker PK, we can add a little bit more, change that from 0.2 to 0.3 millimeters, and you see the difference. A tenth of a millimeter doesn't sound like it's a lot, but when we're talking stitching, a tenth of a millimeter is quite a bit of difference, and it will make make your lettering look richer, look bolder in certain circumstances. Sometimes it just makes it too bold, and the middle of an A will close up, or the middle of an E will close up, but you still need to you still need some pull compensation. Be aware, though, that if you get too wide on your pull compensation, that's not adjusting for your underlay is not changing with that added pull compensation. So you can end up making your column so wide that you start getting toothy edges. And of course that depends on the fabric you're sewing on too, but just something to keep in mind. Who knew there were so many variables here? So let's go back to a little bit of lettering, and what really can we do with lettering? So DecoStudio users have all the same lettering features that Embroidery Studio users have. So we can, if we select our text and hit our Reshape Object tool, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see this. Each letter now has this little diamond shape in the middle of the letter. That allows us to select that letter and do any number of things. We can skew it. We can enlarge it vertically, make it more extended or condensed. We can enlarge it proportionally. We can, with this little icon, we can rotate it. So we have a little bit of control over the look of it. We can also, if we hit the Shift key, we can move it vertically off the baseline. If we hit the Control key, we can move it anywhere we want. If we hit the Alt key, we can't do anything. Sorry. Tricked you. But just by clicking and dragging, we can move it anywhere we want horizontally along the baseline. We can also, by left-clicking once on the outline, we can reshape this letter. So we can change its shape if we're trying to match something. Notice how the underlay changes as I change the lettering, and it changes for all the lettering, not just for that object. That's a tricky one. But we can change our stitch angles. I'm just making this look roady just for the sake of the demo. These are stitch angle lines. Say, for instance, let's just back up a little bit here. Say, for instance, let's take a look at this A. I'm going to zoom back into this A. and I don't like the way this is turning around here, which is kind of this should be flatter right about right here. So I can hit the control key. See how my icon changes when I go over the baseline? It looks like an angle. So I just left click once, and it adds a stitch angle line that I can then adjust and flatten this out. And you can move it along the object wherever you want. So that flattens that out and makes that a little bit cleaner to my eye. You can alter any of these shapes that you need to. Let's say this is going to close up. So let's select those two nodes, and we can move that up. And we can make that look a little bit better. So when it pushes, it won't push shut. Because, oh yes, when this sews, this is going to push this way, and this is going to push this way, because that's the way the physics of embroidery work. This L is going to push up and push down. And I want to show you something else. It's in a different font because this I created myself. Let's go back to Special, Lettering, Text Options. Let's change this to Helvetica, which is your other standard block font. La, 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 la. Here we go. It's coming up. Here we go. Helvetica Small. Okay, I'm going to throw up a guideline, and I want to show you guys something. See how, come on, get in there. Okay, see how, here's my baseline. See how the straight letters are shorter than the curved letters? That's normal in typesetting. That is very normal. So what happens is because, and we're exaggerating this in an embroidery font, because these letters, all these letters here, the E, the O, C, the A, the S's, those are going to sink in and pull back. And these are going to actually push out as they sew. So by exaggerating the offset there, when it sews, it's going to look clean. And all the keyboard fonts that come default with your DecoStudio program, all the keyboard fonts, the ones that have this little icon right next to them, this little stitch icon next to them, they are all adjusted for pushing and pulling, or they should all be adjusted. Not in every case. You may still have to adjust some yourself, depending on how large the letter is. And in the manual, just so you know, if you go to Help, User Manual, in one of the appendices in that user manual, there are the list of fonts that are standard with the DecoStudio program, or in Embroidery Studio as well, and which are and what they were designed for: small letters, max height, minimum height, and that sort of stuff. So that's a good resource to have, so you can see any one of these letters, what they're best suited for. That's pretty much it in general with the lettering. Now we can, before I forget, let's talk a little bit about trims. So under stitching, trim settings. Now, lettering, this trips up a lot of people, even people who have been using the software for many years. And don't tell them I said that. But trim settings after an object are for, in a keyboard lettering, are for the beginning and after an object. Keyboard lettering is considered one object. So if you want to change the way the trims between each letters or between the words work, you have to change the trims inside object. And you can set it to never trim, always trim, or trim only if, which is the default, which is what you really want. Because that way, if the connector or the distance between two objects is greater than 2 millimeters, which is the industry standard, it will automatically put in a trim. A tie off, trim, tie in, and goes. There are certain situations, or if you're one of those people that like to manually trim rather than let the machine automatically trim, DecoStudio doesn't give you that option. You either trim or you don't trim. And if you don't trim, you also don't tie in and you also don't tie off. So in that case, if you absolutely desperately need to manually trim your stuff, then unfortunately you're going to have to upgrade to Embroidery Studio, which gives you more control over that. Like I said, DecoStudio is basic. So and unless you have a super ton of trims in a design, it's not going to slow down your production at all. But we can move these letters apart so that we can activate the trimmers. It automatically does that for you. And unfortunately, you can't adjust for that. Now, the one thing we can do, if you're really of a mind to it, you can adjust. The beauty about DecoStudio or keyboard lettering in E3 is that we can break apart these letters but still have individual words as keyboard lettering. So these are still keyboard lettering, but we've just now made this connector a connector after object. So we can make this after object never trim. Get rid of that trim. And let's see if my theory is right. Did it tie off? Oh, it did tie off. Okay, because the connector is longer than a certain, so it will tie off there. Well, I just made myself a liar. So there you go. You can hand trim that. See, you learn something new. Even after you've been using the software for so long, you learn something new that it does to surprise you. So let's talk a little bit now about hats. This lettering, let's go back a little bit. Let's make this one object. So keyboard lettering or any digitizing is, and especially keyboard lettering, is left to right, right to left. But say if we go back to our stitching and we go set stitch sequence and choose start at center, and it's going to sew left then right, and that's already applied, should be already applied. Oops, I guess I have to select the text first. That helps. Now you can see how it changes. Let's go back. And if you hit the home key on my keyboard to go to the beginning of the design, everything becomes unsewn. And you'll see it sews the O to the H, then trims, and closest point joins to the C, and sews left to right. That needs to happen for hats. Physically, if you think about a hat on the embroidery machine, you have the brim and you have the seam. So the bottom center of your hat is the most stable part of the hat, and going radially out from that point, it gets less and less stable. So that's why we sew center out, because usually you're not sewing right at the brim. You're sewing somewhere up in the middle of the front of the cap where it's less stable. So we sew from the most stable point out to the less stable point, center seam out for a 6-panel cap. Theory still holds for a 5-panel cap, although you don't see so many of those anymore. Most caps that you're going to sew are going to be 6-panel with the center seam down the front. So let's go back to now. Any questions on lettering at all? No? Okay. Let's talk just marginally about fills. We select our lettering. We have an auto spacing of 90%, which was set up for us automatically by our project. Now, you have the ability to adjust that. Say you sew this out and that lettering looks a little too thin or a little too heavy. You can adjust that here. Now, auto spacing is a great tool, but it can be a little confusing. Most people like to use just standard stitch spacing. If you're doing a lot of lettering, especially if you're using a serif letter, you have thick columns and you have thin columns. Well, if you're, especially in keyboard lettering, you can't adjust in the middle of a letter for your density. Thicker columns need more stitching in them to cover better, and thinner columns need less stitching to cover better because of the finite thickness of the thread. If that makes sense, does that make sense to everybody? If you have a thin column, you need less stitching to cover that area because thread is a finite thickness. It's a 40 weight thread is going to be roughly, I think it's somewhere between 4/10 and 8/10 of a millimeter thick. I think your needle, if you use a 70-10 needle or even a 75-11 needle, you're looking at probably 8/10 of a millimeter for that needle. So a thread is a little bit thinner than that. So you're probably 4/10 of a millimeter thick. So when you're talking fractions of a millimeter difference in density, that sometimes is very visible when you sew something out. So what auto spacing does is it adjusts the density for you based on the width of the column. That's already preset for you. You don't have to worry about that. You just use auto spacing and you adjust a percentage for your fabric type. Beautiful tool, and I believe Wilcom is the only software package that has this. It's an awesome tool. So if something looks a little too light, you just ratchet this down to, say, 85% of spacing. If it's a little too heavy, maybe we go at 92. But remember, every 1 percentage point changes things pretty dramatically. Or potentially could change things pretty dramatically. So you should probably keep sewing stuff out to make sure. So we're starting to run short on time, about 15 minutes left. So that's all I'm going to say about auto spacing. Just play with it. Feel free to play with it. You cannot break the program. That's my job. You don't have to. You can't break the program. You can't hurt the stitching because you can always start over, especially if you're playing with lettering. One quick note in your stitching. Where was it? Okay, no, I did cover everything. All right, so let's talk a little bit about importing artwork. So that's where we use our CorelDRAW graphics. So we're going to switch over to that. Bear with me as it decides it wants to work. You know, brand new computers are supposed to be so fast. They're not. So here we go. Here we go. Come on. Okay, we're in CorelDRAW graphics now. So we can zoom out here, and I can show you just a regular CorelDRAW screen if you're familiar with CorelDRAW and all. Here's your page size. So this is CorelDRAW. The interface is configured a lot like DecoStudio and Embroidery Studio, so that it's not visually confusing for users. But really, you have the full guts of CorelDRAW in here. And if you've also noticed, you have CorelDRAW separately, the whole suite separately with your Wilcom software. So you can use it separately with this and just cut and paste if you so desire. But for the interest of the webinar, we're going to do this. So now we're going to import a piece of artwork. File, import. And I have some files already set up here. So we're going to use this batter up bitmap because it's fun. And we're going to go ahead and click import. So first thing you see, if we zoom in, oh, sorry, got it. Finish that process first. If we zoom in, you'll see it's pretty fairly pixelated. So we need to clean that up first. We need to trace that. So let's zoom out just a little bit. Select. We're going to trace the bitmap. Outline trace for logo, which is it's the cleanest. And what it does, it automatically traces it for us. Now we can adjust a few things. We can increase the amount of detail. We can smooth things out a little bit. I don't like that. Corners, we're going to leave that alone. We can remove the background, which it's already done. But notice it kept the background in these letters, which is fine because we're going to end up using keyboard lettering for that anyway. But you notice if we click on colors, we want this to be 1, 2, 3, 4 for the white, 5, 6 colors. Blue, bat color, tongue, 6 colors. But we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 colors here because it's seeing the handle of the bat is 2 different colors, it's seeing the hat is 2 different colors. So we can click on both these colors using your shift key to select both and merge those colors together. So now that's one color. The green we're going to merge together. And all of these black colors, whoops, silly me, all of these black colors we're going to merge together. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with white. So cool. We're okay. So we're going to select OK here. And now here is our vectorized image ready for us to automatically digitize. So you ready for this? We're not going to do the text. So we're going to select off that. And if we move that, that's our original image. I'm just going to move that off to the side. And we can now select our Come on, select him. Oh, it's all grouped. Ungroup first. Select just our bat. Now here's the fun part. Click Convert. It's automatically going to create our stitching for us. Really cool. So, but there are some limitations. So I'm going to hide the vector so we can just see our stitching. So we're going to zoom in here. First thing you're going to notice is there's some bouncing around going on here. And some of our stitches, or the direction is a little weird. And also, if you'll notice, there's almost no overlap. There's pull compensation, see that? But there's no overlap. That is a problem in general with automatic digitizing. It can never be intuitive. So the computer doesn't know that you're supposed to overlap objects like that. So that's where you come in, you reshape your object, and you can pull all this stuff out. And you can add another node. You can, if you select a round node and hit your spacebar, that changes that to a square node, which is a straight point. Round equals curved. Yellow square equals straight point. But aside from that, whoops, let's hide that as well. I'm more concerned with how this thing runs. So let's go through our colors. It shows the fill of the bat first. So it's that part of the hat, the eye, white of the eyes. See how it separates all that? And we want the black to run last, don't we? So let's rearrange our colors to the order that we want them. But let's think about this first. So let's do, we want the green to sew first. Then we can sew the fill of the bat, then the handle, then the eyes, or then the tongue, then the eyes. How's that sound? And then the black outlines. So let's select everything. And this is where we go to this little button right here, which is sequenced by color. So it allows us then to select, move up, do that first, then the fill of the bat, then we're going to sew the handle, then we're going to sew the tongue, then the eyes, then all the black outlines. Click OK, and it automatically adjusts that for us. So again, sews our hat, and sews the fill of the bat, the handle, the tongue, the eyes, and then all the outlining. Now the one thing it didn't do is, notice, let me view by color, green. Shows only the green. If I zoom in here, it did automatically closest point join these two objects. I didn't think it was going to do that, but it did. Okay. So we'll just go back to show all. And let's see how it does in the blue. Let's go view by color, blue. Okay. And it did that too. But see, these stitch angles are kind of funky, so let's see if we can change that. Oh, that is kind of funky, isn't it? If there's anything you don't like, guess what? We can redo it. So let's go like this. Okay, let's say that we don't like the way that handle runs. So let's just delete those objects. We can go Edit, Select by Color, Blue. Point, get rid of it. Now, let's go back to that point. So page up. Yeah, we're on the bat to sew first. Now we want the handle to sew. This is where input A comes in. Satin stitch. Pick our color. And point 1, point 2, point 1, point 2, point 1, point 2, point 1, point 2, enter. We've just now hand digitized our satin stitch for the handle. Easy to do. Did I lose anybody with that digitizing? I hope not. So now it trims, jumps up to the tongue, sews the tongue, sews the eyes, sews the outline. And now you can go through here, let's say view by color, black. You can go through now and you can change your outlines a little bit so that, let's say, we want this one to join across there. We want this to meet. You can clean that up. You can clean that up. If we zoom in here, let's say we want to add a little bit of a, see, we're going to, actually what we're going to do is we're going to fix this part, so this joins like this, and we're going to add another straight point that goes across there. So we stitch edit to here, and we can input a real quick satin stitch across that automatically creates itself, and we just change that endpoint. Now, I'm reshaping this object that I created. This is the start point, this is the end point, so I'm just making sure it joins perfectly. There you go. Now let's talk a little bit. Well, that's the way you convert objects. If you want to change the stitch angle of this object, you can just, this is the stitch angle line right here, and we can change that so that it runs that way. There's so much you can do. I really urge everybody to play. Like I said before, you can't break it. Just play with it. A couple words about Input C and Fusion Fill. Let's talk about that real quick. Input C allows you to digitize one line, hit enter, it asks you for a width, 0.1, 0.2, and it's a single width column stitch. Great for automatically digitizing outlines around objects very quickly. Fusion Fill allows us to create a complex fill shape that allows us to do something cool like this. It allows us to put holes in something, and we can also adjust our stitch angle lines. We can add stitch angle lines. So we can make this go like this. We can make this go like this. And we can make this actually turn around. We can make that a fill stitch and make that look cool. And that's True View, by the way. Sorry. See, I do this every day. So this is True View. This allows us to see the stitches, how they're going to, potentially how they're going to look in embroidery. Obviously, we'd have to fix our overlaps and stuff. We have covered so much ground. One thing I did not go over is when you're ready, when you're done with your file, say, let's get rid of this, and let's do our lettering real quick. And I'm gonna run through this because we're getting short of time, but batter up. We're going to pick Times Roman. Whoops, passed it. And we're going to pick our baseline of arch clockwise. Create text. Enter start point of the arc, enter end point of the arc, and a point on the arc. Now we can make our lettering bigger, can't we? Let's go 12 millimeters. That's more like it. Now if we reshape the object, we can move the lettering to where it looks like it needs to be. And I'm going to add just a little bit more pull compensation. Now that wasn't Times Roman, but this is close enough. You could also, if you really wanted to, if you wanted to be a perfectionist, you can go in and then move these nodes to better mimic the shape of the letter, if you so desire. And then we're going to go under stitching. We're going to add more pull compensation to 0.35 because it just makes the lettering look fuller and bolder. Then say we're done. Then we go like this. Auto start and end right here, which from the beginning of our design to the center, from the end of our design back to center. And that's going to be in the center of our hoop. When you're ready to save it, File, Save As. You want to save it as an EMB file. And the reason why I say save the EMB file, because that retains all of your formatting, all your stitch spacing, all your underlays, all your keyboard lettering stuff, all your trims. Everything is saved. Your artwork is saved, everything in the EMB file. If all you save is a DST file, the next time you open that design to make a change, it's stitch data. Yeah, there are outlines, but it's just stitch data. So, so there you go for that. So that is how you save a design. Iris is asking, can we show the overlapping applique? Yes, I can. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to delete that. And let's just delete all that. We're going to show, blah, 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 hide our vectors. So real quick, an applique is digitized similar to a fusion fill, where it now wants, excuse me. I love auto scroll. Let's start that again. Auto applique. Point, 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 point. Enter point 1 on boundary 2 if we want a hole in it. I'm not going to worry about it. Entry point there. And exit point, we're going to exit there as well. Frame out position. Now a frame out is where it's going to jump to for you to place the applique. And if you, let's go ahead and digitize a second one. Let's use a different color. Okay, so now we have, if we select both of these appliques and click on Combine Appliques, blah, 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 blah. What it does then is it combines both of those appliques so that you have all of your, if you notice, all of those, your placement line runs at the same time, your zigzags run at the same time, and your top stitching runs at the same time. Now, if you want to truly break that apart, that's where the knife tool comes in. And actually, let's look at auto knife. It's not doing it for that. So knife, knife. We don't really need this under there, nor do we need this here. So we're going ahead and removing that section of top stitching when it decides to do it. La 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 la. There we go. Now we select that top stitching and delete it. So all you have is your tack down and your placement line that's truly overlapping. If you want to get super pedantic about it, we can just go ahead and kind of delete that, delete that. Oop, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to move this down so that it's like to here, so that we really don't have to. Let me get rid of all that, so that you don't have a big satin stitch lump underneath that applique. But that's a quick way to use the knife tool to get rid of stitching that doesn't need to be underneath other stitching. But forgive me about the combining appliques. It just combines your placement and tack down lines. Any other questions? There's so much to learn on this, and we have really scratched the surface on what you can do with DecoStudio. So, like I said many times before, I urge you all to play. Just play, and definitely learn what the program can and can't do, and go ahead and try to break it. Because if you find a bug, Wilcom loves hearing about that. Really, they do. They want feedback from their users. I sure hope you learned something today, because we are done. We're out of time. And if you have any questions on anything that we covered in this webinar, you can email me directly at Terry, Terry, at dmgllc.net. That's D as in dog, M as in Mary, G as in group, LLC.net. Or you can email Wilcom at support@wilcomamerica.com. Come join us next month, because we start a whole new series of elements classes, and it's really a lot of fun. There's still going to be, I believe, a DecoStudio class, but it's going to be kind of cool. We zero in on different elements that you can learn, and we go in depth with stuff. So I look forward to seeing some of you guys at your next classes. Have a great day.